All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Colin, and I am a third-year architecture major with a minor in city and regional planning. And I chose Cal Poly's campus for environmental sustainability just to explore more options of how our campus could better reduce their carbon footprint and also use different types of energy systems and zero waste initiatives to better protect our campus, and also different strategies we could potentially use to become a more sustainable and environmentally friendly campus. So throughout this presentation, we're going to address environmental concerns, just as the brief suggests, with energy consumption, waste reduction, different strategies we could use around water conservation, and what students and faculty could use in reducing our carbon footprint on campus together. So, while Cal Poly is a very beautiful campus, and many students may choose to come to this campus overall for its, very beautiful landscape and the opportunities for nature and exploration around the city, the city and campus has a strong commitment to sustainability, but there are many ways that we could start enhancing energy efficiency and reducing that waste to better protect our carbon footprint. So some of these strategies may include solar microgrid and battery storage. We could also think about using wind energy integration if that's a viable enough strategy. But some of the key issues that we need to address here are some of the energy consumption that we already face on campus. So that energy consumption mainly comes from students, faculty, even administrators who all contribute to and are affected by these issues. Waste management is also a very particular one that we could get deeper into, more about like how VGs uses a lot of disposable strategies now with food containers, but just where that's taken to and how it is processed is overall affecting our carbon footprint and how that's mitigated, as well as water overuse, whether that may be water that's used both in dorms or in kitchens around campus, and just how that's managed by students and faculty as well as carbon emissions in like the Mustang shuttles. Sometimes you barely see people inside of them or using them, so if that's carbon emissions that we could potentially avoid. So by addressing these issues, it's very critical for Cal Poly's long-term sustainability, financial savings, and leadership to care a little more for the environment. And some of the strategies that we could use in that is to have a better waste management system, or trying to reduce our high energy consumption, as well as those carbon emissions, again, in finding strategies to how we can mitigate how much we off-put in that sector. Currently, Cal Poly's total energy use is approximately 60,000 megawatts annually, with a majority of that really coming from non-renewable resources. When it comes to waste as well, the university produces over 5,000 tons of waste every year. And that's also been a very big issue as we look into this slide as well. Water consumption also exceeds 600 million gallons annually, but this largely comes from landscaping and campus operations, mainly watering places like Dexter Lawn or the O'Neill Green. And usually this is the case in many other parts of the country and even the world, where most of our water goes into landscaping. But there is a big goal for Cal Poly, and that's to reduce carbon emissions by at least 23%, and that's been in effect since 2015. But in order to meet California's 2045 carbon neutrality goal, more action is definitely going to be needed in order to reach this goal. So while there are efforts already in place to try to reduce carbon emissions, there's still a lot more strategies we could implement on campus to potentially reach this goal set by the state. So one of the ways we are already doing this is through the use of solar panels. And in that top left image, we do see over on Engineering West, there are implementations of solar panels, PV panels, feeding into the microgrid system, which is already a pretty good start. We've also seen strengths and efforts going towards bike-friendly infrastructure, which we can see on the right. But while transportation may cover a little more of how effectively that is working, these buildings could be, and pathways could be more certified by the LEED standard, and a little more friendly towards pedestrians as well. But that's a different conversation for that. So some of the strategies we can use, particularly in parking lots such as the H lot, and I think is already implemented in different parts around campus, such as the parking garage, I think on Grand, is the use of PV panels. And with how intense the heat can get during some days, I think this is a really good compromise between student infrastructure and providing shade for cars under as well. I think this is a very good example of showing how we can take energy from the sun and foster that through PV panels into a battery storage, and whether that energy is used immediately or stored overnight could be a very good strategy implemented to better balance how and where we get our energy. So another way we could use this, as we talked about in this class, is using AI-based predictive analytics, or like real-time energy tracking dashboards for students, in order to figure out what we're using, how we're using it, and this, knowing that information, we could potentially reduce the peak demand that we experience. So I guess I hope that this strategy could increase solar power contribution to campus by covering potentially parking lots, which are very highly exposed areas of just asphalt, and trying to turn that into something a little more useful, and maybe that could add into 50% of total campus energy use, depending on how much area we can get for PV panels. Another strategy, as I briefly mentioned, was taking that energy and potentially storing it into a battery bank, as you can see in this diagram. And also infused with that predictive analysis, we may be able to distribute that energy more evenly and effectively to users who may be using it for classrooms, or people who might stay later on campus during the night when the sun is down. That energy could be stored in battery banks and later distributed for more effective use and storage, between creating that balance between how we harvest energy and when it's used. This is a case study from UC San Diego. This is particularly the East Campus Energy Park, and this is, again, a conceptual development plan. So UC San Diego just recently implemented this concept of a microgrid that potentially does supply 85% of campus energy, which also goes into reducing costs and emissions as well. And you can see in this diagram how they're trying to achieve that, which Cal Poly could be able to use as well. A couple of examples, include like a thermal storage on campus, which can store excess thermal energy provided from later uses, which could help improve heating and cooling efficiency. And a way we could try implementing that is by installing thermal storage tanks to reduce HVAC and energy demand. That could also support climate control in different buildings. Another one of these examples may be fuel cell technology, where UCSD in this example uses fuel cells to generate electricity efficiently and reduce their reliance on a main grid. So one way we could also try to implement that ourselves is using a hydrogen or biofuel-based fuel cell system, which could also provide a clean on-site power generation, very similar to the PV panels. And one last one, which I thought was a little unique, was the algae park. This is a potential biofuel source as well, and this example of the case study explores biofuels as a renewable energy source. And a way we could implement that as well is to research into biofuels, since we're a very ag-friendly school as well, and possibly utilizing that waste from agricultural fields into farming programs, and really just starting a cycle that can use these renewable energy sources. So some of the tech challenges that would come from these are a very high upfront cost, but in the long run could pay off with a grid that uses PV panels as an example and helps store energy for later use, and that could benefit in the cost later on. Integrating this with existing infrastructure will also be a very heavy challenge, knowing that Cal Poly, has been around for well over a century, and trying to integrate with existing buildings can be a challenge, especially with how old they are, as we're seeing the retrofitting for the library going. It's very difficult, as well as weather dependency that may affect battery storage, like cloudy days, impacting how well PV panels may operate, may also be a very big challenge. There's also some ethical considerations we could take into account, whether going back to the integration with existing infrastructure, if all buildings on campus would be able to be integrated with this sort of biofuel or passive energy production. Would all campus buildings be able to feed off the same grid, or would energy need to come from somewhere else? And as we talked about before with like dashboards, being able to see your own energy consumption, that may also lead to privacy concerns, as we talked about in this class as well. So just addressing those issues may be a big challenge, but also very doable for the direction we need to go for meeting new standards around the state. So that's all I have. Thank you so much for listening to the presentation, and I hope we can work together to implement some of these strategies in the future. Thank you.